Ever heard of a mine that, like, completely reinvented itself? We're talking swapping out its star product, like a whole identity shift.
Yeah, it's wild. We're diving deep into the Bisha mine in Eritrea, where gold was just the shiny, temporary headliner.
This week, we're going behind the scenes of the Bisha mine, a place that's seen its fair share of drama, from changing hands to shifting its focus to, of all things, zinc.
Buckle up, because this isn't your average mining story. It's got twists, turns, international intrigue, and it all revolves around the pursuit of precious metals.
So our sources this time are a bit of a mixed bag, which is perfect for this deep dive. We've got reports from industry giants like mining.com, analysis from the folks over at Reuters, and even some legal documents from that crazy Canadian Supreme Court case.
Oh yeah, that one was a roller coaster. We're talking about allegations of human rights abuses, corporate responsibility, the whole shebang.
It's a lot to unpack, but don't worry, we've got our hard hats on and are ready to dig into the fascinating and honestly kind of shady story of the Bisha mine.
Let's get into it.
This mine, I gotta say, has more lives than a cat. We're talking gold rush beginnings, a copper phase, and now it's all about zinc.
Yeah.
Like the stuff of cold remedies.
It's not as glamorous as gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's fascinating about Bisha is that it's Eritrea's first and largest producing zinc project, which is a massive deal for their economy.
Okay, so zinc. Not exactly what comes to mind when you think of valuable resources, so why should we care about this mine's journey?
It's not just about the zinc itself, it's what it represents. This mine is a linchpin for Eritrea's economic development. Think foreign investment, revenue streams, putting them on the map as a global zinc supplier.
So walk us through this switched its product thing. It started with gold, then went to copper, and now it's a zinc powerhouse.
Exactly. It all began with this Canadian company, Nevson Resources. They developed the mine initially going for gold, which, let's be honest, is a classic first act.
Right, gold rush.
But as those reserves started to dwindle, they shifted focus to copper, which was also present in significant amounts.
Makes sense. Adapt or die.
Right, exactly. Then 2019 rolls around, and this Chinese company, Zijin Mining, swoops in and acquires the Bisha mine. They saw the potential of zinc, probably did the math, and made it the primary output.
So it's not just foreign companies calling the shots, right? Eritrea has skin in the game here, too.
Absolutely. The Eritrean government, through their mining investment company E&M Saro, has been steadily increasing its stake in the Bisha mine. This whole thing highlights their long game, like gaining more control over their natural resources and reaping the benefits.
It's always about who controls the resources, right? So how does a mine just switch what it produces? Do they dig a little deeper and bam, different metal?
If only it were that simple. The Bisha deposit actually contains a mix of minerals. Gold, copper, zinc, the whole gang's here.
A metal smorgasbord.
It's all about economic viability and strategy. They extract what's most profitable at the time using different techniques for each metal.
Okay, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Talk tech to me.
Picture this. A massive open pit, like a giant staircase carved into the earth. It's a hive of activity, trucks hauling ore, drills boring into the rock face. That's open pit mining, the method they use at Bisha.
Sounds impressive, but also kind of destructive.
It definitely has its downsides, environmentally speaking, but that's a whole other deep dive.
Noted. So how do they actually get the goods, the gold, the copper, the zinc?
Okay, so for gold and silver extraction, they use this really cool process called carbon and leach. It basically uses activated carbon to selectively absorb gold from the ore.
Sounds complicated.
It is,
Huh?
but effective. Then for copper and zinc, it gets even more interesting. They crush the ore and use a process called flotation. It works kind of like separating peppercorns from salt based on their density.
Clever. But it takes more than fancy techniques to run a mine, right? We're talking about a whole operation happening out there.
You're right. Bisha isn't just some hole in the ground. It's like a mini city in the middle of, well, nowhere. We're talking a power station, accommodations for workers, water treatment plants. It even has its own airstrip.
All the comforts of home, but with more heavy machinery.
Exactly.
Now, while all this sounds pretty cutting edge, it's important to consider the human side of this story. And from what we've gathered, it hasn't always been pretty, right?
You're right. There's a darker side to the Bisha mine. During Nevson's operation, there were serious accusations of human rights abuses, specifically regarding the use of forced labor by a subcontractor.
These weren't just rumors either. This sparked international outrage and even led to that landmark legal battle we mentioned earlier in Canada.
Right. Eritrean workers filed a lawsuit against Nevsun Resources in Canada, claiming the company was complicit in those forced labor practices. Now, the Canadian Supreme Court's decision was a real game changer. They ruled that the case could proceed in Canadian courts, setting a major precedent for corporate accountability for human rights violations, even those committed abroad.
So what happened? Did Nevsun ever face any real consequences?
Eventually, the lawsuit was settled out of court. It left some questions unanswered about the full extent of Nevson's responsibility, but the case itself was groundbreaking.
Yeah, I bet. It really shines a light on the need for ethical practices, not just in mining, but in any international operation.
Couldn't agree more.
So we've got this incredible technological marvel, a potential economic engine for Eritrea, but also this dark cloud of human rights concerns. How does Eritrea balance these two sides?
That's the classic dilemma of economic development versus ethical considerations, isn't it? For the Eritrean government, mining, especially at this scale, represents a path to economic growth.
Sure, attracts foreign currency and creates jobs, at least in theory.
Exactly. But this whole thing raises some really uncomfortable questions about the true cost of that economic boost.
It makes you wonder, can we ever truly have ethical mining practices while still pursuing economic gain? And if so, how do we make sure those practices are upheld, not just in Eritrea, but globally?
It's a tough one, and there's no easy answer.
It's a question we all need to grapple with. So to our listeners, as you go about your day, think about this. Where do you draw the line? What are you willing to accept in the name of progress? And what compromises are simply unacceptable?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Until next time, keep digging deeper.